Nobody cares. That may sound harsh, but it's the truth. Nobody cares about your failures, your excuses, or the stories you keep replaying in your head. People are too busy carrying their own burdens, worrying about their own problems, fighting their own silent battles. And yet, so much of your energy is wasted on trying to be seen, to be approved of, to be validated by those who are not even paying attention. Ask yourself, if nobody truly cares, why do you still live as if their opinions define your worth? Here's the paradox. Once you realize that nobody cares, you are finally free. Free to stop performing. Free to focus on your own life. Free to live with clarity and strength. When you first hear the phrase, "nobody cares," it can feel discouraging. It almost sounds like the world is cold and indifferent, but in reality, this truth can be one of the most liberating lessons you will ever learn. If nobody cares, then you are no longer trapped by the weight of constant judgment. Think about how much of your life is shaped by what you assume others think of you, the way you dress, the way you speak, even the choices you make about your career or relationships. We spend so much time trying to avoid criticism or gain approval that we forget to ask ourselves what we actually want. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that fame and recognition are fleeting, that those who cheer for you today will be forgotten tomorrow, and those who judge you harshly will soon be gone as well. Life is short, and the opinions of others fade quickly. When you step back and see that everyone is more concerned with their own struggles than with your mistakes, you begin to feel a sense of release. The pressure lifts. What matters is not whether people are watching or clapping. It is whether you are living according to your own reason, your own principles, and your own purpose. That is where freedom begins. Most people are too absorbed in their own problems to care deeply about yours. That's not meant to sound harsh. It's just reality. Everyone is carrying invisible burdens, worrying about their finances, health, relationships, or future. They may glance at your mistakes or achievements for a brief moment, but then they quickly return to the weight of their own lives. This is why spending energy trying to impress or appease others is so draining and so pointless. The truth is, they are not holding on to your failures the way you imagine. They are not replaying your embarrassing moments at night. They are too busy wrestling with their own doubts. Understanding this frees you from a trap. You no longer have to live inside the prison of imagined judgment. The Stoics would say that our suffering often comes not from reality, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what others are thinking. When you stop building those stories, when you accept that most people are simply passing by, you reclaim your energy for what truly matters. You no longer waste your days polishing an image. Instead, you can build a life rooted in real strength and inner calm. Think about how much time is lost worrying about the opinions of others. You hesitate to act, not because you lack the ability, but because you fear what someone might say. You hold back your words, not because they are untrue, but because you imagine the echo of criticism. This is the weight of invisible chains, and most of them are locked by your own hand. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that it is foolish to let the noise of other people's voices drown out the guidance of reason within. What matters is not their approval, but whether your actions align with your values. When you live by that, you cannot be enslaved by gossip, envy, or praise. The crowd is fickle. It will cheer you one day and condemn you the next. If you let them steer your life, you will drift endlessly. But if you take the wheel yourself, guided by principle and self-control, you find direction. The irony is this: the less you try to win the crowd, the more they respect you, not because you bent to their will, but because you stood firm in your own. You cannot stop people from judging you, but you can stop their judgment from ruling you. Epictetus said it clearly: when someone treats you poorly, remember They act that way because they believe it is right. In other words, their opinion is a reflection of their own mind, not of your worth. So why give their passing thoughts power over your life? Think of a stone standing in the middle of a river. The water rushes around it, splashing, churning, always moving. Yet the stone does not chase after every current. It simply stands. Your mind can be like that stone. When words come, whether praise or insult, they flow past you. Let them pass, let them fade, and remain unmoved. Most of what people say about you will be forgotten by them tomorrow. But if you let it pierce you, you carry a burden they already dropped. Ask yourself, do you want to live by the fleeting voices of others or by the steady compass of your own reason? The problem with chasing approval is that it never ends. Today someone praises you, tomorrow they forget you, and the cycle begins again. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the people who cheer you now will be gone in a moment, just as quickly as those who criticize you. Their applause fades as fast as the echo of a shout in the mountains. If your happiness depends on that sound, you will forever be restless, always waiting for the next cheer. But if you root your peace in something deeper, your own values, your own discipline, then no one can take it away. Imagine a tree with shallow roots. A strong wind knocks it down easily. But a tree with roots deep into the earth remains upright through every storm. Your sense of worth must be rooted deep in your own character, not in the shallow soil of someone else's opinion. The question is, are your roots planted within yourself, or do they depend on the changing weather of other people's approval? Comparison is another trap that steals your peace. You look at others and see what they have, what they've achieved, and suddenly your own life feels small. But think about it. When has comparing ever made you stronger? Seneca warned that envy eats away at the soul because it makes us blind to what we already have. You could have a good life, but if your eyes are fixed on someone else's path, you'll miss the ground under your own feet. Everyone's journey is different, shaped by challenges you may never see. The Stoics remind us that what matters is not being ahead of someone else, but being better than the person you were yesterday. Imagine a runner who keeps turning his head to check where the others are. He stumbles, he slows down, and he loses focus. The same happens when you live in comparison. Your task is to run your own race, steady, eyes forward, guided by your own reason and purpose. Ask yourself, what have you improved in your own character today, no matter how small? That is the only comparison worth making. Another reason to stop worrying about what others think is simple. Most people are too busy with their own struggles to truly care about yours. We imagine that the world is watching us, judging every move, but the truth is that everyone is caught up in their own lives, their own fears, their own desires. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that even emperors are forgotten quickly after death, so why would the opinion of a neighbor or a stranger hold such weight? Think about it. How often do you dwell on someone else's choices for more than a moment? Rarely. Yet you assume others spend hours thinking about you. They don't. This should bring relief. It means you have more freedom than you realize. You can live without the chains of imagined judgment. When you accept that most people are focused on their own problems, you stop living as a prisoner to their approval. This is not a call to be careless or unkind, but to shift your attention from their opinions to your actions. Are you living according to your values? Are you working on what you can control? That's what matters. The noise of others is just that, noise. Your life is not meant to be directed by an audience that doesn't even exist. When you focus too much on what others think, you hand over control of your life. You let strangers, co-workers, even family dictate how you act, not because it's right, but because you want their approval. This is one of the most subtle but dangerous forms of slavery. Epictetus said that if you want to be free, you must stop being controlled by what is outside of your power. Opinions are always outside your power. You can't change them, you can't hold them, and you can't guarantee them. But you can decide how you live, what choices you make, and how you respond. Think of it like steering a ship. If you're constantly shifting direction to please every wave, you'll never reach the shore. But if you set your course and keep the rudder steady, no matter the winds or noise around you, you'll arrive where you intend. Freedom is found in this steadiness. The irony is that the moment you stop trying to impress everyone, you actually earn more respect. People sense when someone lives with inner clarity and strength. They may not always agree with you, but they recognize the weight of someone who stands firm. To be unshaken in a world that constantly demands your attention is to live with real power. Most of the noise in life comes from comparison. But you look at what others have, what they post, what they achieve, and suddenly your own path feels small. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that another person's virtue or possessions had nothing to do with his duty. The Stoics taught that envy is a waste of energy because it puts your focus on things outside your control. You cannot control what another person has earned, inherited, or displayed. You can only control the discipline of your own mind and the work of your own hands. Imagine a runner in a race who spends more time looking sideways at his competitors than focusing on his own stride. He stumbles, loses balance, and falls behind. Life works the same way. The moment you obsess over where someone else is, you lose the pace of your own journey. If you measure yourself constantly against others, you will never find peace, because there will always be someone ahead, faster, wealthier, more praised. But if you measure yourself against yesterday's version of you, progress becomes steady and real. Every small step, every lesson, every trial endured becomes part of your growth. That is where fulfillment lies, not in being greater than others, but in being greater than who you were before. When you strip away comparison, you discover clarity. You no longer chase shadows, but walk your own path with firm steps. And in the end, the only measure that matters is whether you live true to your own nature. Another trap that pulls people away from their own lives is the search for constant approval. Many spend their days waiting for a nod, a like, a comment, some sign that they matter. But here's the truth: the crowd is fickle. Today they cheer, tomorrow they turn away. If your sense of worth depends on their reaction, you will live chained to an unstable master. Marcus Aurelius warned himself not to be carried by the clapping of the audience or the whispers of praise. For him, the measure of a good life was not what others said, but what reason and virtue demanded. Think about it. Have you ever achieved something important, only to find that the recognition you longed for was brief and shallow? That fleeting feeling is proof that approval is not solid ground. The Stoics advised seeking an audience of one, your conscience. If you can look in the mirror at the end of the day and know you acted with integrity, that is a victory no applause can replace. Approval seeking turns you into an actor playing a role for others. Living with inner discipline turns you into the author of your own script. The more you free yourself from the need to be liked, the more authentic your actions become. People may notice you, or they may not. That is no longer the point. What matters is that you are no longer tossed about by their opinions. You stand firm, and from that firmness grows true strength. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to understand the limits of your control. Much of our negative thinking comes from trying to grasp what was never ours to hold. The actions of others, the course of fate, the judgments people make. The Stoics drew a clear line: what is up to us and what is not. Our thoughts, our choices, our responses, these belong to us. Everything else belongs to the world. When you waste your energy chasing control over things outside your reach, frustration will always follow. Imagine standing on the shore, demanding the waves calm down because you want a quiet sea. It will never happen. But you can decide how to set your sail, whether to row or whether to stay ashore. That choice is yours. Epictetus reminded his students daily, some things are up to us, some are not. If you let that truth sink in, it changes everything. When someone insults you, you cannot stop their tongue, but you can decide how much weight their words carry in your mind. When circumstances turn against you, you cannot rewrite reality, but you can choose patience, courage, or resourcefulness. The more you practice this division of control, the calmer your life becomes. You stop being dragged into storms that were never yours. Instead, you conserve your energy for steering your own ship. Freedom begins here, with the humility to accept what is beyond you and the courage to master what is within you. Think for a moment about where your attention goes each day. How much of it is spent worrying about how you are seen by others, replaying old mistakes, or imagining outcomes that may never happen? Attention is the currency of your life, and whatever you give it to grows stronger in your mind. Negative thinking thrives because it feeds on your focus. The Stoics understood this clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal as if reminding himself, "Life is shaped by what you dwell on. If you dwell on loss, you will feel constantly deprived. If you dwell on insult, you will feel constantly wounded. But if you dwell on what is good, on courage, discipline, justice, and gratitude, your mind begins to form strength instead of weakness. Imagine a garden. If you water the weeds every morning, they will overrun the soil. But if you choose to water the flowers, slowly the weeds wither and the beauty takes over. The same is true with thought. Each time you notice yourself spiraling into negativity, pause and redirect your focus, not with empty positivity, but with reason. Ask, is this thought useful? Is it in my control? Does it align with the life I want to live? With practice, your attention becomes a tool, not a trap. You stop feeding what harms you and you start cultivating what makes you resilient. Attention is limited. Spend it wisely, and the quality of your life will rise to match the quality of your focus. There comes a moment when all of this must be put into practice, when the philosophy stops being words on a page and becomes the way you actually live. That moment is every single day, in the smallest choices. You cannot control the entire world, but you can decide how to greet the morning, how to speak to another person, how to carry yourself in difficulty. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations for anyone else. He wrote them as reminders for himself, because even an emperor needed to steady his mind. You and I are no different. Negative thinking will always try to creep in. Life will always present challenges, setbacks, and reasons to complain. But each time you resist the pull of bitterness, each time you choose patience over anger, gratitude over resentment, action over rumination, you are practicing the very heart of Stoicism. It is not about being untouched by hardship, but about being unbroken by it. Your thoughts can either chain you or free you. The discipline of focusing on what is in your control, accepting what is not, and responding with calmness is how you turn philosophy into a shield. Over time, this shield becomes your second nature, and life's storms, though still fierce, no longer sweep you away. This is the real strength. To walk through the world with a steady mind, knowing that while you cannot dictate events, you can always master your response. When you finally understand that nobody else can live your life for you, something shifts. The noise of comparison, jealousy, and insecurity begins to fade. You stop wasting energy asking why others have more or less, why life seems unfair, or why recognition doesn't come as quickly as you hoped. None of that is within your control. What is within your control is the way you wake up each day, the discipline you bring to your work, the way you treat the people around you, and the way you guard your own mind. This is the quiet freedom the Stoics spoke about, the ability to carry peace within yourself, no matter what happens outside. You don't need applause to live well. You don't need validation to have dignity. And you don't need everything to be easy in order to be strong. When you focus on your own life, fully and without apology, you find that the opinions of others no longer have the same power to wound you. People will forget your mistakes faster than you think, and they'll move on from your successes just as quickly. That is why the only lasting measure is the one you keep with yourself. Did you live with integrity? Did you choose reason over impulse? Did you build something meaningful, even if no one else was watching? That is the kind of life that can withstand time. That is the kind of life Marcus Aurelius was urging us to live, not perfect, not free of hardship, but honest, steady, and entirely your own. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next lesson.